Welcome back to Frome for Thought, a programme of digital content from the team behind TEDxFrome 2021. Well, we're still in 2020, of course, but we will be confirming our live event, we hope, for March 2021 first. But we wanted to get on with some stuff, and we've been having a fantastic time, and I hope you've been able to join us before. So either welcome or welcome back. We've had speakers from Frome, but we've also had speakers from South Africa. So what's wonderful is that we're not limited by geography at all. We've had several interviews, but this is just our second talk tonight in our series of Facebook Lives, which will be happening regularly, mostly once a week on a Wednesday between now and our live event. We're still lining up our programme for November, December and beyond. So if you're interested and you'd like to be part of it, do go to our Facebook page, TEDxFrome, and find out more. So welcome back, Hannah, because Hannah was our interviewer last week, interviewing Jen, but she's taking the stage herself tonight. So just to introduce Hannah properly, Hannah Stainer is a wellbeing and youth coach, teacher, and host of the am I pronouncing that right? Psyche Mental Wellbeing podcast, among many hats that she wears. Hannah's idea worth spreading, which I'm really excited to hear about, is if you want to make changes, start from a question instead. So over to you, Hannah.
Thank you. So hopefully when Nicola drops off, we'll stay live and not disappear. Perfect. So yes, my idea is if you're wanting to make change, as a lot of us are quite often, starting with a question instead. So if you're anything like me, or how I used to be, I've sort of changed now. I would always set New Year's resolutions, not always at New Year, sometimes through the year. And then something would happen, something would come up and I wouldn't be able to stick with them. And that's not uncommon. Actually, in the UK, Sunday, the 19th of January, not necessarily a Sunday, that was, I don't know what year that was from, but the 19th of January is Quitter's Day, which is the day when actually the majority of people have already given up on their New Year's resolutions. Actually, around 25% of people actually continue beyond that first month of the year, and only 8% of people who set resolutions for themselves go on to actually achieve them. And so in 2019, for some reason, I don't know why, I decided I would do something a bit different. And rather than setting myself a resolution, a statement of something that I was going to change or something I wanted to achieve, I asked myself some questions instead. And for me, if I give you a little bit of background, the past 10 years had been a bit of a struggle. I'd been depressed and anxious, and I'd kept sort of holding myself back from what I wanted to do. And there was a lot of fear and a lot of worry about what people thought. And I would have all these big plans and I would start, and then life would get in the way, or I would get distracted, or I wouldn't be able to motivate myself. And I was just stuck in this loop, which probably sounds familiar to a lot of people. So in 2019, I asked myself these questions at the beginning of the year. What happens if I don't give up? And what happens if I stop worrying what people think? Because I am a massive people pleaser, and I know that is something that is really, really common. And so why is this effective? So when we set a resolution, when we have a statement of something that we want to achieve, it's a very fixed thing. It's very rigid. I am going to do this. I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week. And with that, it might be a great aim, something that you really want and something that you really want to work towards. But that statement in itself is a really fixed thing. So I can achieve it or I cannot achieve it. And there isn't really that much wiggle room for adapting and being flexible. And so if you have a resolution like that, as soon as you have not managed to go 3 times a week, what quite often happens is we go, oh, well, I've not achieved it now. I'll just stop. And that's not necessarily a conscious thought process, but that's kind of what's happening. I haven't been successful, so I'm going to stop. But a question is open, it's curious, it's creative, it's open to possibility. and it's flexible. So with my question, what happens if I don't give up? That could be applied to any area. So actually in 2019, I did start a gym habit, which surprised my friends, some of my closest friends, because it involved getting up early, and I am a complete night owl. I'm not a morning person. And there were some days that I didn't go. But instead of saying, I'm going to go this many times a week, and then if I didn't do it, feeling all that disappointment and kind of beating myself up about not doing it, actually what I was working towards is, what happens if I don't give up? So I didn't go today. That's okay, because I'm not giving up, so I can go tomorrow. And there is much more room to be able to adapt. And when things happen in life, when things come up and we change our direction, a question means we're much more open to being able to flex and to sort of sway with life and change where we're going. The other thing with questions, and if you use questions at work and you've heard of powerful questions, they are very much about discovery and about dialogue. So as a teacher, questions are used all the time to get children to discover things for themselves or to think about things more deeply. And these kind of questions I'm talking about, they're helping us have that dialogue with ourselves. So really tuning into what I really want, what's really important to me. Do I actually really want to go to the gym 3 days a week? I'm sticking with that example because I think it's one that lots of people can kind of relate to. But they really help us to develop that self-awareness and connect with ourselves, which is something that I personally think is really fundamental for well-being, to really know yourself and be able to tune in to yourself and kind of where you're at. So yeah, you might have heard of goals. And actually, when I was getting some statistics on resolutions, Forbes have suggested instead of statements, you have goals, because goals are really focused. They're really specific. You've probably heard of SMART goals, and they're great. They can really help you when you're motivated to kind of stick with where you want to go and kind of see that route map. But they have that same problem that statements have, that they're fixed. My goal is to do this. And it might be really clear, but again, it's a very closed thing. I can achieve it or I can not. So by all means, set yourself goals, but I would encourage you to start with a question first. What is possible for me? One of my other questions for 2019 was, if I stop limiting myself, what is the limit of what I can achieve? And, you know, maybe take a moment to think about that for yourself. What happens if you stop putting these barriers in your own way and you just have an open mind and just think about what is possible for you? And these sorts of questions as a starting point really allow you to be curious, to be creative, to think of new possibilities for yourself. And then you can do the goals and you can focus. But it's something when we set these set things for ourselves, so often we can lose track of them, we can fall off the wagon, and then we get into that cycle. So having an open question that through the year or through the rest of your life, you're just trying to answer it. What happens if I don't give up? What happens if I just see what happens? So, you know, people pleasing, I mentioned, is something a lot of us have. Imposter syndrome as well, that real concern of what people think of us. I think they're very, very common thoughts and beliefs that a lot of us have. And it can be really easy to fall back into those habits. But having a question to return to, of, well, what happens if I tomorrow just try again, just try differently? And I like to talk about experimental living, this idea that life is just a big experiment. We're just seeing what happens and we're adapting rather than being stuck. And it probably makes it sound really easy. It's life is a journey, and it is about constantly, you know, we follow these familiar paths that we've walked before we slip back into those habits, but having a question to return to that is open to possibility and opportunity, rather than a statement that we're using to beat ourselves up because we haven't achieved it yet, is just a really quite subtle mindset shift, but a much more positive approach to have. And I really think if you think about questions for yourself, actually you'll find that the change that you're working towards, hopefully, much more achievable. If my questions don't work for you, then have a think and come up with some of your own, and hopefully there'll be some ideas from other people in the chat. And then my final thing was just, encourage you to give it a go, try some questions of your own, because really, what have you got to lose? And next week, we'll be joined by Ruth Bradshaw, who is doing our third talk, and she is talking about instincts and intuition, what we learn from connecting with animals. So please do join us for that, and follow our TEDx Facebook page for updates. And if you want to do your own talk or panel or be interviewed, then please get in touch, because we would love to hear your ideas worth sharing. So that's it.